There was a period when Amanda and I were bound together like two pieces of the same soul. Our love was the kind others looked at with envy, the kind that transformed ordinary moments into scenes worthy of cinematic magic. We could talk endlessly about insignificant things and life-changing topics alike. We'd laugh at jokes only the two of us understood. We couldn't resist being physically close to one another. Then gradually, almost imperceptibly, things started to shift. Our conversations grew briefer. The enthusiasm in her voice diminished. The little gestures, her instinctively reaching for my hand, her head finding its place on my shoulder after a challenging day, disappeared. Evenings once filled with intimacy transformed into stretches of quietness. She would turn away from me in bed, her back becoming a silent wall between us. Entire months would go by without physical closeness, without even meaningful kisses. I attempted to persuade myself that this was typical, that such changes were simply part of married life, that work pressures, daily routines, and general existence had a way of dulling even the brightest connections. But in my heart, I desperately wanted our relationship to thrive again. I resolved to make a genuine effort to remind her of what we once meant to each other. One afternoon, I departed from work earlier than usual. I visited the grocery store, meticulously selecting ingredients for her preferred dish, one I hadn't prepared in ages, along with her favorite wine. Then I headed home. I arranged the dining table, lowered the lighting, even selected some gentle background music. I wanted the evening to feel exceptional, to remind her of who we used to be together. Half an hour later, she entered through the front door, placing her handbag on the countertop as she would on any ordinary day. When she noticed the table setup, she didn't smile. She didn't appear moved or pleased. Instead, she exhaled deeply. "Oh, Michael, you shouldn't have gone to all this trouble." Something in her voice made my heart sink. "I just wanted to do something special for you," I replied, struggling to maintain a smile. She glanced at the table, then back at me. I already had dinner. I stared blankly. "What?" "I grabbed food with Lisa after work. I didn't realize you were planning this." She didn't even attempt to taste anything. Didn't even sit with me. Just mentioned being tired and went directly to bed. I remained alone at the table, gazing at the untouched meal, feeling completely foolish. A few days afterward, I left work early again. I hadn't planned it. I simply couldn't concentrate. Something felt wrong. Amanda had been emotionally distant for months. But after how she dismissed my surprise dinner, that feeling had only intensified. On my drive home, I contemplated stopping for flowers. I even slowed down when passing a flower shop. But something instinctual told me it wouldn't make a difference. That no floral arrangement, no gesture would repair whatever was broken between us. When I entered our house, it was unnaturally quiet. I expected to find Amanda on the sofa, watching television or browsing on her phone since she had taken the day off. But the house felt empty. No television sounds in the background. No kitchen noises. Just stillness. That was unusual. Her vehicle was still in the driveway, so she wasn't running errands. I frowned, moving toward the bedroom. That's when I heard her voice. She was speaking on the phone, laughing. I approached closer, my heartbeat accelerating, my stomach already nodding before I even understood why. "I'm completely bored, Lisa. You can't imagine. Michael is just... I can't even pretend anymore." I froze mid-step. My breath caught in my throat as I pressed my back against the wall, just steps away from the doorway. "I mean, even intimately, Lisa," she said, her voice lowering conspiratorially. "I have to fake my reactions every single time. It's pathetic. It's honestly exhausting." Something inside me fractured. I could hear Lisa laughing on the other end, as if this were some amusing anecdote. "I don't even want to be intimate with him anymore," she continued, almost complaining now. "But when I do, I just endure it so he doesn't begin asking questions. God, I can't imagine spending my future like this." I swallowed hard, my hands trembling at my sides. But the conversation wasn't over. The other night, Michael was preparing some elaborate romantic dinner for us. And meanwhile, I was with Daniel that evening. She released another carefree and amused laugh, this time louder, completely unaware that her words were destroying me. I gripped the doorframe so tightly my fingers hurt. Daniel. That name struck me like a physical blow. Yeah, we had dinner first, then booked a hotel room afterward. It was incredible, Lisa. He actually knows what he's doing. Unlike Michael. Another laugh. I felt nauseated, my stomach in knots. My mind screamed at me to burst into the room and demand answers. But I remained immobile. Not because I feared confrontation. Not because I wanted to avoid conflict. But because I recognized that this wasn't merely a moment of anger. This was a moment that altered everything. I had suspected something was amiss for months, but hearing it articulated this way, hearing her laugh about it, made it undeniably real. I took a step backward, careful to move silently. I didn't need to hear more. I had heard enough. I didn't know how long I remained in the hallway afterward. Perhaps a minute, perhaps 10. My mind was vacant, my hands unsteady. Then something transformed. The hurt remained present, but beneath it, something else began emerging. Something intense. Something unmistakable. Fury. I wasn't just some fool she could exploit and mock with her sister. I wasn't going to passively allow her to disrespect me. No, she thought I was weak, that I was oblivious. She was about to discover how mistaken she was. I wasn't going to confront her immediately. Not yet. I had a superior strategy. That night, while Amanda slept peacefully beside me, I took her phone. My hands shook as I unlocked it, my heart pounding against my ribcage. I scrolled through her messages with Daniel, each word cutting into me like a knife. "Can't stop thinking about last night," Daniel wrote. "Me neither. I can't wait to see you again," she responded. I exhaled sharply, my grip tightening around the device. I continued reading more texts, images, arrangements, and then the definitive revelation. I discovered they were meeting again tomorrow. I stared at the screen, my mind a battlefield of emotions. I had suspected. I had overheard. But now I had incontrovertible evidence. And yet it still wasn't sufficient. I needed to witness it personally. The following morning I departed from home as usual, dressed for work. But I didn't go. Instead, I parked down the street, close enough to observe the house, but far enough that she wouldn't notice me. My hands clutched the steering wheel so firmly my fingers became numb. I watched the clock, the seconds crawling by. Then, at exactly 11 a.m., Amanda exited through the front door. She wasn't wearing her typical leggings and oversized sweatshirt, the casual at-home appearance she always presented to me. From my car, I observed as she stepped onto the porch, adjusting her purse strap. No, today she was dressed up, fitted jeans, a revealing blouse, makeup, perfume. She looked breathtaking. Not for me. Never for me. I suppressed the burning sensation in my chest and followed her from a distance. She drove directly to a small shopping center and pulled into the parking lot. For a moment, I wondered if I was mistaken, if perhaps she genuinely was just running errands. Then Daniel's car arrived. I felt my stomach plummet. He didn't hesitate. He didn't verify if anyone was watching. The instant he exited his vehicle, he approached my wife and kissed her. Right there in broad daylight, as if it were inconsequential. I clenched my teeth, my nails digging into my palm as I retrieved my phone. I captured photos, every moment, every angle. She smiled at him, the kind of smile I hadn't witnessed in years. Her arm encircled his neck as she drew him closer, surrendering to him. She tilted her head back, laughing, completely relaxed, completely in love with him. Then after several minutes, they returned to their cars and drove away. I already knew their destination. I followed them at a careful distance, my pulse thundering in my ears. I wanted to look elsewhere, to turn around and pretend I'd never witnessed any of it. But I didn't. I watched them pull into the parking lot of an inexpensive hotel on the town's outskirts. Not some upscale, discreet establishment. No, they didn't even attempt to conceal it. They parked adjacent to each other. Daniel exited first, walking around to open the door for her. Like a perfect gentleman, Amanda stepped out, adjusting her blouse, smoothing her hair, then hand in hand, they walked through the hotel entrance. I took more photos. I had all the evidence I needed, but instead of feeling vindicated, I felt something else. Calmness. Not the kind of calm that brings serenity, but the type that precedes a tempest. I knew precisely how I would terminate this relationship, and I wasn't going to do it privately. No, she had humiliated me secretly, but I was going to expose her in front of everyone, and I knew exactly when and where. 2 days later, we were at her parents' home for dinner. I behaved normally, as if nothing had changed. I smiled when appropriate, nodded at the right moments, even engaged in small talk with her father about work. Meanwhile, I had consulted with an attorney the day before. The divorce proceedings were already initiated. Amanda suspected nothing. She had no idea that this would be the final time she ever sat beside me, laughing as if she hadn't betrayed me in the most devastating way possible. Her parents had always been fond of me. They treated me like their own son, always commenting on how fortunate Amanda was to have me. Tonight, they would learn the truth. After dinner, everyone moved to the living room. Amanda sat beside me, her body comfortably pressed against mine as if we were some idyllic couple. She laughed at something her mother said, sipping her wine, completely unaware that her world was about to collapse around her. I inhaled deeply, my heart steady, my mind clear. Then I spoke. There's something I need to show you all. I removed my phone, connected it to the television, and pressed play. The first image appeared. Amanda and Daniel kissing. Gasps filled the room. The warmth in the atmosphere instantly vanished, replaced by thick, suffocating silence. Amanda tensed beside me. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened with shock. Her father leaned forward, his jaw clenched, his expression dark with anger. I allowed the silence to extend. Let everyone absorb what they were seeing. Then the next image flashed onto the screen. Amanda and Daniel entering the hotel together. What the hell is this? Her father's voice sliced through the silence like a blade. It wasn't merely anger. It was something deeper. Betrayal. Disappointment. Shame. Amanda's wineglass slipped from her grasp and shattered on the floor. Her face was ashen. Her breathing faltered as she turned to me, eyes wide. Michael. I didn't allow her to finish. I discovered everything, Amanda. The lies, the infidelity. The night I prepared a special dinner for us while you were with him. I know it all. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words emerged. Her father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. He turned to her, eyes blazing. Is this true? She swallowed hard. Glancing between me, the television, and her parents, she knew there was no escape. Her hands quivered in her lap. Dad, is it true? His voice resounded like thunder throughout the room. Amanda flinched. Her throat bobbed as she forced out the word. Yes. Her father exhaled sharply, shaking his head in disgust. I can't believe you. I raised you better than this. Her mother just stared at her, eyes glistening, disappointment evident in her expression. Mom, Amanda began, but her mother turned away. Her father's voice was cutting. You destroyed your marriage. For what? Some cheap affair. Amanda sat motionless, tears forming in her eyes. But I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Just finality. She turned back to me, reaching out as if she could still rectify the situation. Michael, let's discuss this. Just between us. I stepped back. There's nothing to discuss. She blinked, her lip quivering. Please. I turned to her parents. You've always treated me like family, and I value that. But I cannot remain married to someone who disrespects me this way. Then I faced her. Go home and pack your belongings, Amanda. You're leaving my house tonight. She released a choked gasp. Michael. I didn't look at her. She wasn't my concern anymore. Amanda wept. She pleaded. She abandoned every ounce of arrogance and indifference she had displayed for months and replaced it with desperation. But I was finished. I grabbed my keys and exited her parents' house without another word. She didn't follow me. I didn't expect her to. During the drive home, I took my time. I wasn't eager to see her again, to find her still in my house. So I pulled over a few blocks away and just sat there, staring at the dashboard, allowing everything to process. But when I finally walked through the door, she was still there, standing in the living room. Eyes red, a partially packed suitcase at her feet. Michael, please. We can repair this. I didn't even pause. I zipped up the suitcase and dragged it to the door, barely giving her a glance. I laughed. Repair this? The only reason you care now is because you were caught. She shook her head, stepping toward me. Her face streaked with tears. No, that's not true. I'll end it with Daniel, I promise. I turned to face her, truly looking at her. The woman I once loved. The woman I thought loved me. And I felt nothing. It doesn't matter, I said. My voice calm. I've already filed for divorce. She released a choked gasp, her hands covering her mouth as if she was only now comprehending that this was reality. She wasn't in control anymore. Her knees gave way and she collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Not delicate tears. Broken, desperate sobs. I stood there momentarily, watching, waiting for even the slightest hint of regret within myself. But there was nothing. No sadness, no anger. Just relief. I walked to the door, pulling it open. Goodbye, Amanda. She hesitated, her breath catching. Michael. Her voice was diminished now. The same woman who had mocked me behind my back. The same woman who had dismissed my affection, ignored my efforts, given herself to another man while I fought for our relationship. I nodded toward the door. Leave. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, she appeared small. And just like that, she was gone. That night, I sat alone in my living room. No sound, no tension, just silence. But it wasn't oppressive. It wasn't painful. It was tranquil. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something. I wasn't waiting for love. I wasn't waiting for respect. I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I had chosen myself. And I had never felt better. Thank you for watching.